I want to take you on a journey today, one where we explore the power of our minds and more specifically, the power of our imagination. What if I told you that anything you can imagine, no matter how impossible it may seem right now, can actually become your reality? It might sound like magic or wishful thinking, but it's something that has been proven time and time again by great thinkers, teachers, and everyday people. And one of the most important lessons I've learned about this comes from a man named Neville Goddard, a teacher who showed the world just how powerful our minds are. Neville Goddard said something that has stuck with me for a long time. He said, "Experience has convinced me that an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact, that continuous imagination is sufficient for all things, and all my reasonable plans and actions will never make up for my lack of continuous imagination." Let's break that down, because there's so much wisdom packed into those words. What does Neville mean by an assumption? Well, an assumption is something we believe to be true, even if we don't have any proof that it is. It's like when you assume it's going to be a sunny day just because the sky is clear in the morning. You don't know it's going to be sunny all day, but you believe it will be. But here's the magical part of what Neville is saying. Even if the thing we're assuming seems false, even if it feels like we're just pretending, if we hold on to that assumption and persist in it, it will eventually become real. In other words, what we continuously imagine in our minds can harden into fact in our lives. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can something that seems totally made up turn into reality? It might sound a little unbelievable at first, but let me share a story from my own life that might help explain. A few years ago, I wasn't very good at sports. I was the kind of person who would trip over their own feet while running, and I definitely wasn't the best at catching or throwing a ball. But deep down, I wanted to be good. I wanted to feel confident when I played, and I wanted to contribute to the team. So I decided to give Neville's idea a try. I started imagining myself as someone who was great at sports. I pictured myself running fast, catching every ball, and being one of the best players on the field. At first, it felt a bit silly. After all, I wasn't actually that good yet, but I kept at it. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined myself playing the way I wanted to. I imagined the crowd cheering, my teammates giving me high fives, and the coach smiling in approval. Day after day, I filled my mind with these images, even though they weren't real, not yet. But then something amazing happened. Slowly, I started to notice changes. I began running a little faster, catching more balls, and my confidence grew. My teammates even started noticing, asking me what I had been doing to improve so much. The thing is, I hadn't changed anything about my training. I hadn't practiced more than usual or learned any new techniques. The only thing I had changed was the way I imagined myself. My continuous imagination, just like Neville said, had started to harden into fact. This experience taught me something incredibly powerful. What we imagine in our minds can shape the reality we experience. Neville Goddard understood this deeply, and he believed that our imagination is the key to creating the life we want. And the best part, it doesn't matter if the thing you're imagining feels impossible at first. If you hold on to it, if you persist in that vision, it will eventually become your reality. Now, you might be wondering, how does this work? Why is imagination so powerful? Let's take a closer look. When we imagine something, especially when we do it vividly and with feeling, our brain doesn't always know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. In fact, studies have shown that when we vividly imagine doing something like playing a sport, practicing an instrument, or even giving a speech, the same parts of our brain are activated as if we were actually doing it. This means that by continuously imagining a certain outcome, we're essentially training our brain to believe that it's possible. And when our brain believes something is possible, we start to act in ways that make it happen. Let me give you another example, this time from a more personal area of my life. For years, I was terrified of public speaking. Just the thought of standing in front of a crowd made my palms sweat and my heart race. Whenever I had to give a presentation, I would stumble over my words, forget what I wanted to say, and just pray for it to be over as quickly as possible. But I knew that if I wanted to grow, I needed to get over this fear. So I decided to use my imagination, just like Neville taught. Every night before bed, I would close my eyes and picture myself giving a speech. I imagined standing on a stage, feeling calm and confident. I pictured the audience smiling and nodding along as I spoke clearly and effortlessly. In my mind, I was the kind of speaker who could capture a room's attention with ease. At first, it felt strange because it was so far from the truth. In reality, I was still that nervous, shaky person who dreaded public speaking, but I kept at it. I persisted in that vision night after night, even when it felt like nothing was changing. And then something started to shift. The next time I had to give a presentation, I felt a little more at ease. My hands didn't shake as much, and I didn't stumble over my words as often. Over time, with each presentation, I noticed that the fear was fading, and in its place was a growing sense of confidence. Today, public speaking is something I actually enjoy, and I credit a huge part of that transformation to the power of my imagination. This is exactly what Neville Goddard meant when he said that continuous imagination is sufficient for all things. Our imagination is like a mental rehearsal, preparing us for the reality we want to create. The more we practice in our minds, the more we start to believe that it's possible. And when we believe something is possible, we take actions that align with that belief. But here's where Neville's teaching goes even deeper. He says that no amount of planning or hard work can make up for a lack of imagination. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't work hard or make plans. Of course, those things are important. But what he's saying is that without the foundation of imagination, our efforts won't take us as far as they could. Let me explain with another story. A few years ago, I had a big goal. I wanted to start a new project that I was really passionate about, but it felt overwhelming. I made a detailed plan, set clear goals, and worked tirelessly to make it happen. But despite all my efforts, I kept running into roadblocks. Things weren't moving as quickly as I wanted, and I started to doubt whether I could really achieve what I had set out to do. That's when I realized I had been focusing so much on the practical side of things, the planning, the to-do lists, the action steps, that I had forgotten to engage my imagination. I hadn't spent any time really seeing the outcome in my mind, so I decided to shift my approach. Every morning, before diving into my work, I took a few minutes to imagine my project as a huge success. I pictured the finished product, the people it would help, and the feeling of accomplishment I would have. I let myself fully experience the joy and pride of having achieved my goal, even though it wasn't real yet. And wouldn't you know it, things started to change. The roadblocks I had been facing began to dissolve, and new opportunities opened up that I hadn't even considered before. It was as if my imagination had unlocked a new level of possibility, one that I couldn't have accessed through planning alone. This is the essence of Neville's teaching. He's showing us that imagination isn't just a nice thing to do when we have time. It's a necessary part of creating the life we want. Without it, our plans and actions are like seeds without water. They may sprout, but they won't fully bloom. So how do we apply this in our everyday lives? How can we use our imagination to create the reality we want, even if it seems impossible at first? The first step is to get clear on what you want. It might be a big goal like starting a business, buying your dream home, or finding the perfect relationship. Or it might be something smaller like becoming more confident, improving your health, or developing a new skill. Whatever it is, take some time to really think about what you want to create in your life. Once you know what you want, the next step is to start imagining it. And I don't mean just thinking about it once in a while. I mean really engaging your imagination as often and as vividly as you can. Picture yourself living that reality. See it in your mind's eye. Feel the emotions that come with it. And let yourself fully experience it, even if it seems far away from where you are right now. At first, it might feel like you're just pretending. It might feel unrealistic or even a little silly. But remember what Neville Goddard said, even if the assumption seems false, if you persist in it, it will eventually harden into fact. That's the power of continuous imagination. The more you imagine, the more real it will begin to feel, and the more your brain will start to accept it as possible. Think of it like planting a seed. When you first plant a seed in the ground, nothing happens right away. You water it, give it sunlight, and wait. At first, it seems like nothing is happening under the surface. But if you keep taking care of it, one day you'll see a tiny sprout pushing through the soil. That's what happens with our imagination. At first, it might feel like nothing is changing, but if you keep nurturing your vision, eventually you'll start to see results. Now, I want to share something really important about this process. It's not enough to just imagine your goal once and then forget about it. Neville emphasizes the need for persistence. This is where many people struggle. They might imagine something a few times, but when they don't see immediate results, they give up. But persistence is key. Just like you wouldn't expect a seed to grow into a tree overnight, you can't expect your imagination to produce instant results. You have to keep going, even when it feels like nothing is happening. For example, let's say you want to improve your health. Maybe you've been struggling with low energy or feeling unwell, and you want to feel vibrant and full of life again. You could start by imagining yourself as a healthy, energetic person. Picture yourself waking up in the morning feeling refreshed and full of energy. See yourself eating nourishing foods, exercising with ease, and feeling strong in your body. The more you imagine this, the more your brain will start to believe it's possible. And when your brain believes it's possible, you'll start making choices that align with that vision. You'll find yourself drawn to healthier habits, and over time, your body will begin to reflect the image you've been holding in your mind. But again, it's all about persistence. If you only imagine yourself as healthy once or twice, you won't see much change. But if you make it a daily practice, if you keep holding that image in your mind, even on days when you don't feel great, eventually your health will begin to improve. That's the magic of continuous imagination. Now, let's talk about the second part of Neville's teaching, where he says that no amount of reasonable plans and actions will make up for a lack of continuous imagination. This might sound surprising at first because we've always been taught that planning and action are the keys to success. And while those things are certainly important, Neville is reminding us that they're not enough on their own. Without imagination, our actions and plans can only take us so far. Think of it like this. Imagine you're building a house. You have all the tools and materials you need, the bricks, the wood, the nails, the hammer. But if you don't have a blueprint, if you don't have a clear picture in your mind of what the house is supposed to look like, your efforts will be scattered. You might build something, but it won't be the house you really want. Imagination is the blueprint for your life. It gives you a clear vision of what you're working towards. Without it, your actions might feel aimless, and your plans might not lead you where you want to go. But when you combine imagination with action, that's when the magic happens. Your imagination provides the vision, and your actions bring that vision to life. Let's go back to the example of public speaking. When I first started using my imagination to overcome my fear of speaking in front of people, I didn't just sit around and wait for the fear to disappear. I still took action. I practiced my speeches, I signed up for opportunities to speak, and I worked on improving my skills. But the difference was that I was also using my imagination to create a vision of success. I wasn't just relying on practice and action alone. I was pairing it with a powerful mental picture of what I wanted to achieve. That's what Neville is teaching us. It's not about choosing between imagination and action. It's about using them together. Imagination gives us the vision, and action makes that vision a reality. But without imagination, our actions can only take us so far. So, how can we apply this in our lives? How can we make sure we're using both imagination and action to create the reality we want? First, as I mentioned earlier, you need to get clear on your vision. Take some time to really think about what you want in your life. What are your goals, your dreams, your deepest desires? And once you have that vision, start imagining it regularly. Make it a daily practice to spend a few minutes each day vividly imagining your goal as already achieved. See it, feel it, experience it in your mind as if it's already true. Next, take action. But don't just take any action. Take inspired action. When you're regularly engaging your imagination, you'll start to notice that new ideas and opportunities come to you more easily. You'll feel inspired to take certain steps that align with the vision you've been holding in your mind. Follow those nudges, trust your intuition, and take action from a place of belief, knowing that your imagination is already creating the reality you want. And finally, be patient and persistent. Remember that change doesn't happen overnight. Just like a seed takes time to grow into a tree, your vision will take time to manifest. But if you keep persisting, if you keep holding on to that vision and taking action in alignment with it, eventually you'll see it start to take shape in your life. In conclusion, Neville Goddard's teaching is a powerful reminder of the incredible potential we all have within us. Our imagination is not just a tool for daydreaming or escaping reality. It's the key to creating the reality we want when we persist in our imagination, even when the vision seems far from where we are right now. It has the power to harden into fact. And when we combine that imagination with inspired action, there's no limit to what we can achieve. So I encourage you to take this teaching to heart. Start using your imagination every day, no matter how big or small your goal may be. See yourself as the person you want to become, living the life you want to live. And trust that, with persistence and belief, your imagination will guide you towards the reality you've been dreaming of. Thank you.